there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learnt an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello and welcome to Collaboration Global's podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. It's a glorious, sunny Friday afternoon, and today I'm joined by Ben Drury, or Benjamin Drury as he's known on LinkedIn, if you want to go checking him out on LinkedIn as well. Ben, welcome to the podcast. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks, Jill. It is wonderful to be here. So good to chat to you.
Brilliant. Well, you and I are in the danger zone of talking for England. So I've got to be really careful. I'm going to keep an eye on the clock, because there is every possibility it could be like 7 o'clock at night and we're still having a jolly nice chat. And because we're on the same page, that's one of the things that struck me about you when I very first met you, is that you say things and I'm like, I'm nodding, yep, absolutely, I agree. I couldn't agree more. It's just this resonance that I get from you, that you are one of life's really good people, and that you are just out to see what you can do. And you said to me earlier that you want to know that every interaction you have with someone is going to be useful and is going to be valuable to them. So I applaud you for that sentiment on its own. I think it's absolutely amazing. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking what makes Ben Drury. So first and foremost, you're now connected and a member of Collaboration Global. You're one of our newest members, which is awesome. What kind of attracted you? Do you remember how you first found out about it, and when you kind of came along? Actually, you joined before you even went to a meeting, didn't you? Which is more unusual.
Yeah, I think I'd been to a meeting before, but I had to duck out for some reason. And then I got introduced to you by Charlie Wyman, who's another member. And then eventually came, and just like you said, after having a conversation with you, I'm like, this is a tribe. It's a tribe I want to be part of. This is a group of people with the same ideals. It's not about what we can get. It's about what together as a community we can build that makes life better for everybody else. And that's just where I come from. And we could chat for hours about this, and we almost did when we first had that one-to-one, and it was a no-brainer for me. Joining a community like that was absolutely spot on.
Fantastic. And I love that your interactions with everybody already. You're kind of famous before you've even got your foot in the door. I absolutely love it. So
I'm in awe of some of the members, though. They're such accomplished people, but they're also down to earth and genuine and accepting, and it's just a wonderful place to be. It really is.
And they're so self-deprecating, and I'm like, do you realize how amazing you are? You just blow my mind. They're like, oh no, it's just me, and that's part of what the podcast is about, is acknowledging these people are incredible. But no matter who you meet in this life, whether it's a road sweeper or cybersecurity specialist, or somebody with all this technical knowledge, or somebody with not a huge amount of knowledge at all, there's always something within them that's been given as a gift from our universe that makes them really, really special.
Absolutely. There's people like Francis, who's part of the group, his brain's the size of a planet when it comes to security and I'm just blown away.
Yeah.
But the way he delivers it and the way he draws you in is just so gentle, and there's no kind of airs and grace about him. He's just a genuine guy.
And ultimately, he wants to help as many people as possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what it's about. So yeah, we're in the right space, I think, Ben. Welcome to our tribe, as you say. Brilliant. I want to take you back to a sort of early doors. We want to find out what Ben's really like. So when you were like 7, 8 years old, and at that age, anything's possible. I can do anything. When I grow up, I'm going to be what was it for you?
The first thing I wanted to be was a dustman, because in my world, dustmans only work one day a week.
Oh, I like the logic.
I think that says something about my view on the world, that actually, I wanted to do something I could get done quickly and then go off and enjoy life.
Right.
It took me a bit longer to figure out that actually you could do work and enjoy it. But I think at 8 or 9, I was just finding my feet in the sporting world as well. It was kind of when I was coming into my own as a rugby player and as a runner, and I was at school and I was having the opportunity to kind of try all these things and really just excited about it. And I would have loved to have been. I think it was one of those things. I would have had the talent to be a professional. I just didn't have the heart to be a professional, and that's 60%, 40% of the game, isn't it? 60% of it is all in the amount of energy and effort and single-minded focus. But I think probably at 7 or 8, I didn't really have the single-minded focus to do anything.
You just wanted to have fun.
Exactly.
And that's perfectly reasonable, I think, for any age. That should be your criteria for going into something. Even if you need dedication and commitment, I think anything that you're going to be successful at needs a bit of discipline, needs consistency, needs you to show up, needs you to practice and get better at your skill, whatever that happens to be. And sometimes that's really boring. I mean, you imagine the Olympians now getting ready for Tokyo. The work they have had to do is quite phenomenal.
Yeah. And some of them have had to keep it going for that extra, well, they've all had to keep it going for that extra year. They were expecting last year and they would think, right, I'm at my peak. And they're like, oh, I've got another year of just the grind. It must have been hard. I applaud them massively.
Which is all the mindset, isn't it? It's
absolutely.
Yeah. So I applaud the 8-year-old Ben that went, I really like rugby, but I don't feel like I want to do.
It's interesting watching now because my kids are starting to grow up and do sport and trying to keep that balance. And my eldest daughter and my youngest son are both pretty exceptional in the sports that they play. Trying to kind of guide them through and keep that balance and keep the fun and enjoyment in it while giving them the opportunity to kind of progress and go through the development pathways for those sports is quite interesting, quite a balance. And trying to balance should we do some more work today? Should we do some skills work today or not? Without trying to burn them out it's a fascinating journey as a parent.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think of like the chess prodigies, they start so young, don't they?
Yeah.
And I wonder, only they can answer the question, but do they really enjoy it, or is it something they've been conditioned into?
Yeah.
And that's something we talk a lot about in Collaboration Global, is the conditioning of the society and how we view our world and how we see our lives in a fear, scarcity, competition space of, I've got to get more clients, I need to get some more income, I need to have that really lovely holiday in Barbados next year, I need to move house because it needs to be bigger. And all of this kind of thing that's driving us is from the consumer perspective rather than what's making you happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it is that balance, isn't it? Yeah. I would love them to achieve what they want to achieve, because actually the joy and the excitement and the thrill of having achieved it is what they get from it, but not because they just want to be they want to be somebody to somebody else. No, do it because it's all inside, not because it's outside.
Don't be somebody for somebody else. I like that. That's really clever. I mean, you moved house specifically for your family, didn't you, if I remember rightly?
Yeah, a while back. We lived in Whitley Bay since the turn of the millennium for a long time. But when our kids were growing up, we got to the point where we thought, actually, they need to see a slightly different world, because I love this town and it's becoming more and more cosmopolitan as the years go by. But at the time, it was white, middle class, university educated families that had come to university, moved out to the coast, had families. And it was a very, very, it lacks diversity quite significantly. And for us, it was like, well, actually, no, we need our kids to see that there's more to the world than this. So we moved to London, and they went to schools where 50% of their class was non-white British, and they just experienced a different life. Just for no other reason. I mean, we managed to get jobs down there, and it was just the timing all came together for it. But one of the big reasons was we wanted the kids to actually experience something different. Now, we've since moved back to Whitley Bay because house prices in London are just ludicrous, and we'd really enjoyed our time in London, but it had run its course. But they've come back with a completely different view on the world and a completely different experience, and they've just broadened their understanding of what the world is all about, which is great.
Yeah, it's lovely, because at that age they're like little sponges, aren't they? And they just soak it up. I remember, I think I said this to you before, when I went to school at East End of London 100 years ago, I was the white minority, because it was just after the Windrush generation came over, and we had every nationality down our road, and we had every nationality. The only other white girl in my class was from New Zealand.
But I bet you didn't see it like that, did you? You didn't even realise that was the demographic case.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
That's how the world is.
Yeah.
Until my mum pointed out that all of my friends happened to have darker coloured skin than me, and that was kind of like a glass ceiling moment, like, oh, really? I hadn't spotted that at all. It's very, very bizarre. So presumably you've been in business for yourself for quite some time, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I started 2007, and it's had its ups and downs. So I've managed to. It's the same business, so I've managed to keep the business going and never gone bankrupt. But there have been times where I've had to step back into the employed world to pay off some debts, and to me, it's like it's all part of life. You know, there've been struggles and there've been tough times, but I wouldn't change it for the world. There've been times I haven't enjoyed, and there've been times where I've had sleepless nights, but it's been formative, and it's given me what I've got now, and it's allowed me to understand. The last time I had it about 5 years ago, where we lost a couple of really key clients, and we had to let everybody go. I think it was 4 people we employed, had to let them go. And we had to give them a week's notice, but we gave them a month's notice, and we said, if you give us 6 months, we'll pay off everything we owe everybody. And that's what we did. Never ever gone bankrupt. And I've been around the block a few times, but to me, there's something about, actually, if I have a problem and my business is a problem, that's not my supplier's issue. That's not my employee's issue. Why should they have to pay for it? And I can go bankrupt and I can write it all up, but I refuse to do that because it's not their fault.
That is such a refreshing attitude. I have been stung by people that have put their businesses into bankruptcy so they didn't have to pay me amongst all their other people. And it's like, why would you go down that road? It's so demeaning. I don't know if that's not the right word, probably, but it's really refreshing that you really rallied and made sure that you could make those promises and keep those promises.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, don't get me wrong. There are times when I've had to go to banks and go, we need to come to an agreement here.
Yeah.
And change the terms. And banks are one thing, suppliers are another thing. And you've got to look at it all on its own. And I think, but so far, you know, touch wood, I'm still going, still building out. And last year's been tough. Yeah. Last year, you know, we've gone to the wire. We're still here, clawing our way out, because that's what life is about. It's that challenge. It's that adventure. I've been in business a long time, but it's had its ups and downs. It hasn't always been plain sailing.
Well, when you consider that, would they say most businesses, something like 60% of businesses fail in the first year, and you're sort of not that far away from your 20th. So,
blimey,
you know, you can give yourself a little pat on the back there.
I hadn't done the maths on that one. Wow.
Not too bad. What did you do before you had your own business, though? What was your journey into where you are today?
I've been around the block quite a lot. I left university. I did a degree in management science and IT at university, and I left university and I really could not be bothered to get a job. Again, and I think this mentality has served me well. It's the idea that how can we make this as easy as possible to do? How can we formalize it? How can we systemize? How can we get, and I think that attitude, but it also, on the flip side, it makes me really hesitant to actually do things that seem like they should be easier, but they're actually quite hard work, which sometimes doesn't, you know, it causes a few problems. But I left university. So I phoned in a few favors, and I phoned around and said, have you got any jobs? Is there anything I can do? Because I really can't be bothered to go and look for a job and apply. And who needs somebody? And I eventually got a job through a connection working in Abbey National, as was then, working on their current account systems and eventually on their internet bank, which was one of the first internet banks in the UK. And then I left and toured with a theatre company. So after 5 years of doing that, I'm like, it's all a bit dull now. I'm just going to do something else. So I toured with a theatre company for a while, writing and directing.
Awesome.
And then I then I went and did some youth work. So I ran, did some youth work with my wife in London. We ran a youth centre down in London, connected it up with other local youth groups. And then my wife trained as a teacher. So that's when we moved up to the Northeast. And I got a job training as a social worker. So I did child protection social work for a while.
Tough job.
Yeah, it's not something that I could do long term. I've real admiration for those people that can, but I just found it so emotionally difficult that I for me and my family, I'm glad I stopped, because it's just really tough work.
You bring it home. You can't help but bring it home with you, can you?
No, exactly. And that at that point when I left, I thought, well, I'm just going to start a business. I'm just going to do web development and tech development work. And from then, that's roughly what I've been doing, kind of tech development work. And then I've drifted into culture out the back of it, really, having built something that other people looked at and gone, how'd you do that? I'm like, well, this is how we did it. And this is what we built. And these are some of the tools we used, etc.
So when you say you drifted into the culture work, I mean, this is obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see that he's got thecultureguy.co.uk and the logo spread all over the place. And that's what you're known for. That's what your what's the word? Your strapline is, you know. So why does culture matter so much to you? Why is it the kingpin as opposed to so many other things, that like success strategies, or, you know, all the other things that it could have been?
Culture is the foundation of everything. Peter Drucker famously said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. But you know, even when you're looking at one person, your culture is that mindset, those values, the environment you build around yourself, and that affects absolutely everything. So it's like a plant. If I plant beautiful roses between the cracks in the pavement on my street, chances are we're not going to get the greatest roses. But if I plant them in a cultivated bed with nutrients and compost and really look after them, the roses are going to be so much better. And that's what culture is. You know, it's either you're building the cracks in the pavement, or you're building a beautiful bed where something belongs, and the quality of what you get out is going to be completely different depending on what that culture is. Culture comes from the Latin word to grow, essentially. Culture is an environment where things grow, and what grows depends on the culture. So the question is, what do you want to grow? That you've got to build the right culture to do it.
So I'm loving this conversation. Did not know the Latin there. So when you know that to grow, so once you know what you want to grow and you develop the culture, do you find there are things within most cultures that are kind of run through everyone, or do you find that they differentiate massively from each other?
Well, there's a kind of differentiation we need to make, first of all, that the culture is defined by the behaviors, but lots of different behaviors could reflect the same value. So, you know, we say that our culture is based on these values. These are the foundational core values. But if we have a core value of compassion, then actually that could manifest itself in lots of different ways, depending on the social culture you're in, the country you're in, depending on who you're talking to. You know, compassion for someone like my daughter is all about cheering her on, saying she can do it when she doesn't think, and sometimes being a challenger. Yeah. Whereas compassion for my son is more about giving him a hug and sitting with him. But it's the same value. We're looking after the people, we're understanding where they're at, and we're giving them what they need, but it manifests in different ways. And so the culture might look different depending on who you're interacting with in the organization. But the underlying values are the same.
And also, from my perspective, when I go into a business as a business coach to sort of check out, you know, they say, we've got a great culture, and you go, okay, show me, where's the evidence? And you can see it, that behind the receptionist desk there is a vision and mission statement, or there is this, you know, etc. And yet you can't see any evidence of the, you know, love is very important in our community or in our culture. It's like, well, show me, because at the moment they all look quite bitchy.
Absolutely. And this is one thing I was having a conversation this morning about this very thing. And if you're listening in the UK, you'll understand what I'm about to say. If you're listening elsewhere in the world, I'll explain it in a minute. But in the UK, we have hard candy that we get at the coast, which is what we call a stick of rock. And in a stick of rock from a British seaside town, the name of the town is written all the way through the stick of rock, so that wherever you break it, you can read the name of the town inside. And that is essentially what culture should be like. When you get it right, no matter where you touch an organization, you can feel that culture runs all the way through the organization. And for those that aren't from the UK, if you go online and look for British seaside rock, you'll see exactly what I mean.
Yeah, even if you do Blackpool rock, that's the classic one, isn't it?
That'll do.
Blackpool rock, that will get you one of those sweets. And it is true, it has to run all the way through. I sometimes say to people, you know, if you were to be arrested for loving people too much, or being great to your staff, or supporting people in their hour of need, or whatever it is, if you were to be arrested for that thing, would there be enough evidence to convict you?
Absolutely.
Like, oh, okay.
Like, totally.
Where do you demonstrate it, and how do you do? So you go into a company first of all, and generally, would they ask you to come in and look at their culture, or is that kind of a side swipe at, like, actually, before I can do this, I have to do?
Yeah, often there's two sides to this. One side is that people that know they need to do it and have a heart to do it, but don't have the time, or perhaps the real focused inclination to do it, bring me in and I can help do it. The other side is that people often come and go, can you come and fix my people for me? I mean, obviously I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially where they're coming from. Yeah. And so that usually when they do that, there's a little bit of work to be done around trust and understanding and determining whether the people that have invited me in want to do the work or not, because they need to do the work. All I can do is come in and help formulate what that work is, give them some pointers, give them some tools, stand alongside them and kind of guide them. But I can't change a company's culture. I can go in and I can implement some stuff, but as soon as I walk away, unless somebody else is driving it internally, it's all going to fall by the wayside when I leave. And that's definitely not what we want.
It's got to have, it's a bit like therapy. There's a joke about it, isn't there? How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb?
Yeah, only one, but it's really got to want to change.
Exactly. And whatever organisation you're in, even if the governor thinks they've got a great culture and you can see it's not working, you know, and I've worked with staff before where they together were great, but they hated the boss, but they had to kind of pay lip service. So they would never go above and beyond at any time, because they would just do the bare minimum to get by, because they didn't respect him and didn't have that, you know, that will to make it better than what it was. It's like they'd given up.
Yeah. And then you go and ask the boss, and they're like, why don't my people engage more? Why don't they stay later? Why haven't they got the passion that I've got? And I'm like, because you haven't given it to them.
Yes.
It's your job to give it to them. Come on.
Yeah. And sometimes that's to you and me, we're like, that's so obvious. But to somebody else that's like, they are the problem. It's all about them. It's not possibly me. You know, it's like, fix them. As you say, it's that kind of philosophy. It's like, you know, do something with them. They're not, you know, I thought I had the right people. They were fully qualified. They had all the qualifications and the experience, but they've not got the right attitude. And you kind of, well, maybe that's because of you.
And yeah, the simple answer is, what attitude are you rewarding in your organization?
Yeah.
Because that's what they're going to be like. Welcome to the world. And you know, and as a boss, if I'm behaving a certain way and I'm reaping the rewards, how's everybody else going to behave? There's a great quote, actually, as a general from I can't remember whether it was in the Falklands War or previous war that we're involved in, but he basically said, it may be too late to change your organization, but you need to understand that the way your people appear is the way you behave. You might not be able to fix it, but you've at least got to live with that realization, which I thought was just so profound. The way your people appear is the way you behave. It's a reflection. And as parents, we know this.
I was just going to say,
as parents, we totally know this, because your kids will do stuff and you think, oh, okay, yeah, I see where that's from.
Yeah.
You go and hide now.
And then when they're misbehaving as teenagers, and you say to them, you know, don't think you can get away with that, because I used to be exactly the same. And you're like, oh, hello. And what goes around comes around. It's payback time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so true. And even there's when you watch dog behavior programs, this is just nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if you're rewarding a dog going, oh, no, don't bark, and you pick them up and you give them a cuddle, then what they're going to do the next time, they're going to bark when somebody knocks at the doorbell. So it's not all about specific rewards and things, but it is just like, what are you saying in your actions and how you behave? And have you had any great success stories that you're like really proud of that you want to share?
I was working with, and I love this because it's so simple in its beauty. I was working with a company in London that the founders, I think they had 18 to 20 staff, and the founders essentially were going out of the office to try and build business, and they were going to Europe, and they were going to the Middle East, and they were going to the US. But the problem they had is when they were out of the office for more than 24 hours, everything just got a bit sloppy. You know, people just got a bit lazy and didn't quite deliver. You know, they turned up to work and they're at their desk, but they didn't give it. And so they brought me in and they said, look, we've got this problem. What do we do to control this? What do we do to get our people doing more? And so we had a discussion, took about an hour, and we had a discussion. And I said to them, right, what you need to do is you need to implement unlimited holidays and fully flexible working so people can work when and where they like.
Wow.
And they looked at me and go, no, that's completely the opposite of what we've just asked you to do. Why would we do that? And I said to them, look, I realize this is scary and you feel that this is going to have the wrong impact, but let me encourage you to try it for a month. If at the end of the month you want to can it because it's a disaster, do it. If it's the end of 2 weeks you want to can it because it's all falling apart, do it. But give it a try. At the end of the month, I phoned them up and they said, this is weird. It hasn't had the impact we want. It's had the opposite. It hasn't had the impact we thought it would have. It's had the opposite, which is what you said it would have. But we're still not quite sure. I said, well, give it 3 months and then we've got some serious data. Yeah. So I phoned them up at the end of 3 months and they said, we're gobsmacked. Oh. We've had the best 3 months in revenue in the 6-year history of the organization.
Wow.
Productivity has gone up 40%. Staff turnover has gone down to 0.
Brilliant.
And the amount of holidays taken in the 3 months is exactly the same as the amount of holidays taken in the same 3 months last year. So essentially, we've increased by 40% at 0 cost to the business. And when we did some digging, we realized that when you treat people like adults, they behave like adults.
Funny,
when you give them when they're sat at their desk, it's an absolute choice.
Yeah.
So they do the work and they do it great because they've chosen to be there, because in their head, it's up to them. And so it just had this big impact on people's mindset when they were sat at their desk. And generally, people want to work. They want to do something. What they don't want to do is useless stuff. What they don't want to do is stuff that doesn't matter. But they do want to do stuff. And if you give them something that matters, something that has purpose, something that they feel like they're contributing, and that can even be some of the jobs we look down on, people that work in supermarkets, they're having a big impact. And they're looking at, and this last year, they've realized the impact they are having and how important their work is and how wonderful it is that they're doing it.
Yes.
And they've got a lot more meaning out of their work because of the pandemic. They should have had that before, but at least now they understand it.
It's because they've been acknowledged as well, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so as long as you can give meaning to what's going on, and quite frankly, if you can't give meaning to what's going on, why the hell are you doing it anyway? But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
So as long as you can put meaning into it and you can give them autonomy to go, well, it's your choice. Actually, you'll find that people knock it out the park and they surprise you.
It's giving them the chance, isn't it? Giving them that opportunity to say, all right, then watch me. I can do this. Let me prove to you that I'm good enough that I can do it. Have you ever seen the TED Talk by Ricardo Semler? I might have mentioned this to you before. But it's along very similar lines, whereby he's got a staff of about 30,000.
Yeah.
It's an old TED Talk, so I'm not sure if he's still still in the business, because was getting on a bit then. But he would let them not only choose when they worked, but choose where they worked. So the various offices, you can go to anyone. If you've done your job on a Wednesday, why turn up on a Thursday and a Friday? If you've finished a project, go and have 2 days off. You don't need to keep being there for the sake of being there. You don't have to work 9 till 5. You turn up, but you get the job done. And he also let them choose their salary. And he said it was open source. You want to see the books? You want to see how Fred up the road, how much he earns? They'll be seeing what you earn, and you choose how much you think you are worth to this company, because you can see all of the books, how much it costs to run the company, who gets paid, what they get paid, and you pay yourself what you think is a fair rate for the work that you're doing. He said, I don't want anybody sat at a desk feeling that they want to be somewhere else. And it was a beautiful thing. One of the quotes from him that I come back to again and again was when one of his friends said, "Hey, Ricardo, I've done really well with my life. I've made a lot of money. I've got a great house, wonderful family, go on fabulous holidays. I think it's time I gave back to community." And he looked him in the eyes and said, "My friend, if you need to give back, you took too much in the first place."
Yes, I totally love that. I've been saying this to businesses for a long time. I want to see businesses, I'm sorry, you got me on one now. Zero negative impact in our supply chain. CSR is a great start, but if you have to do CSR, what are you recovering from? What are you fixing that you broke already? Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. For those that don't know, what's CSR in your world? Just making sure that we're on the same.
Corporate social responsibility. It's the idea that because we're doing something over here, we want to make sure that we do something over here to counterbalance it. Because we're building with plastic and dumping it in the ocean, we're going to do an ocean cleanup over here. Stop dumping it in the ocean. Then you won't have to.
Thank you. I wrote a post on that just this week. Funny enough.
Don't get me wrong. There's good CSR projects, and there are companies that do stuff under the umbrella of CSR that is good stuff. I don't want to write it all off.
No.
But there are also companies that are doing CSR to assuage the conscience, and I'm like, go fix the problem. Stop whitewashing it.
And there is, I'm not sure who it was now, so I'm not going to play the blame game. But somebody was a car manufacturer, I believe, and they went off and they planted thousands of trees to offset their carbon footprint. And somebody went and checked on those trees. And there was like 5 of them that were still alive. It's like, what a waste. Why? It's just to say they could tick that box and that they've done it.
But I love that. I love that idea that he opens up his whole company so that it's completely open. And I would love to see that. And I've always done that. So look, yes, this person is in a different situation to you, therefore they're getting paid different. It's not because it's just right now that is their situation. They've got hospital bills to pay or whatever. So we're going to help them out with that a little bit. And swings and roundabouts. And this is what Dan Price did, the guy that runs Gravity Payments.
Right.
He went to his staff during the pandemic and said, "We want everybody to get through this. We want all of you to come through this on the other side with us. We don't want this to mean that anybody loses their job. But to do that, we're going to have to cut our cloth accordingly. Some of you are going to be able to afford to cut more than others. I will make sure that whatever gets taken away, we give back later. But right now, how much can each of you afford for us to cut our cloth accordingly?"
Wow.
And his staff went above and beyond to make sure their expenses dropped enough to get them through. After they started recouping their revenues again, he's paid everybody back, made sure nobody lost. But because his staff were so behind him and so what they're doing, they stepped up, essentially.
That's
His
beautiful.
staff, a while back, he made the minimum salary in his company $70,000.
Right.
And he took a massive pay cut. And his staff clubbed together and bought him a Tesla just to say thank you. That is how much they love working.
Wow. That's a great culture, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
That's phenomenal.
And the trouble is that there's a lot of people in America keep looking at him and going, "What are you doing? You're a socialist. You're a communist. Why are you doing this? This is silly. You'll never work." And he just keeps sitting there with his arm folding going, "Well, it's still working. How are you coping?"
Yeah.
It's like...
But the thing is, especially in America, I'm not wishing to paint America with a bad brush, and I think it happens in the UK as well. People associate your income, your salary, what you're putting in your pocket as who you are, and they're not the same thing at all. It's just the money you happen to earn. I mean, at Collaboration Global, we say we don't actually care what you do for a living or how you earn your money, because it's just something that we all have to get through and do. What we care about is what you're passionate about. So he's obviously passionate about his company to make sure that everyone got through and everyone, this is a terrible situation with the pandemic. And how many companies must have gone, "Oh yeah, we can't sustain everyone's salary, so we're going to lose 100 people."
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like, does it?
How many of those companies would have been able to go to their staff and say, "Look, how much can you afford to lose while we're doing this?" Yeah. And for them to put their hand up and go, "I'm happy to take a 50% pay cut.
Yeah.
If it helps everybody else out, I'm up for it."
And ultimately, they want to be able to have those choices, don't they? Because if the person next to you, or the next computer, or whatever they're doing, is possibly going to lose their job, and that their family is going to suffer and all the rest of it, you're like, "Yeah, sure." I'll, because he didn't say you lose it. He said, "I'll pay you back afterwards. I'll make it right."
Yeah.
you
But also, it's like some of those people, they took 5% pay cuts because that's all they could afford because their kids are in college and they've got 4 kids. Somebody else who's a dink, who's got double income, no kids, could afford to lose 50%. And they're like, it's fine. Nobody was resentful of anybody else in whatever situation because they were team. They were in it together and they got through it together.
And presumably he took a pay cut as well. Did they know about that?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing. And to me, that's like, it's common sense, and yet we're talking about it like, whoa, what a lovely man. It's like
it should be commonplace. It really should.
Yeah. It's like when one of the richest people on earth, I'm not sure which one it was, could have been any of them, in the pandemic donated £1 billion. And then you find out, well, actually you've got 19 billion. So it's like, for me, it's like, well, why don't you keep 1 billion, which is still a hell of a lot of money, and donate 18? Cheapskate, just, and I know that might have been property or whatever, but it's like everyone was going, oh, how good, he's donated a whole $1 billion. I'm like, he's got too much already.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not. How much is enough? How much is enough?
I was at an event once where somebody was doing an activity and they were asking people how much money they wanted for their happiness. Yeah. And people were going, well, I'd like to pay off my mortgage and then a little bit more, maybe have a nice holiday. And so he said, how much? Give me a number. And they're like, oh, 250,000. Then the next person was like, well, actually 500 would be really nice. And they were talking as though somebody was about to give them a check. It was really, they were thinking about it. And, and it was like, everything, what do I need? What I could do with a new car. And then, so maybe, $1 million might be really, really nice. Got to me and said, how much do you need? I said, I don't need anything. I said, I have a roof over my head and food in my belly, but I want billions.
Yeah.
I know what to do with it. I know exactly. You know who you can help. You can help so many more people. So I don't want billions in my pocket, but I want access to what it can do for all of the people that that you can help. So it's just this different attitude. People think money is like, oh, if I've got all this, I can do anything I want. And what I want to do, I don't know. Well, is it making me happy? I'm not really sure. And then the insecurities come in because they have no self-worth in the first place. And they probably haven't been brought up in their tribe with a culture of how can I help?
Absolutely. And give me £100 billion. How about we put the best schools with the best teachers in the poorest areas? Let's see what happens with that.
Yeah.
How about we go to the favelas in Brazil and educate everybody there and build football grounds for the kids to be part of proper teams and proper leagues rather than playing in the street? Yes. Not that I want Brazil to get any better at football, but you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
How about we make sure that everybody has a minimum amount of food every week in this country? How about nobody has to skip a meal to feed their kids? How about we do that?
Yes.
How about, I'm not worried about paying off my mortgage. Just get that sorted.
Yeah, and also, why can't everybody have that enough income, whether they go to work or not, have enough income that they know they've got a roof over their head and they've got food in their belly? Yeah. And is it Norway, Sweden have got this universal income kind of thing?
Universal basic income, yeah.
Yeah, and some people go, no, I'm good, I don't need it, thank you very much. And other people, it's going to be their breadline. But there must be so many artists that are currently working, in a supermarket because they need to get the money, but they don't have the time to do the art, which they could do, which would inspire, thousands of people. This balance of we need money just doesn't fit the current paradigm that we're moving into. Because of the pandemic, we're coming into this other space now.
But we have a real, we need a paradigm shift in that at the moment, we are set up to define the economy, to decide what economy we want and build society accordingly to support the economy we've chosen. Mm-hmm. What we should be doing is going, what society do we want? Okay, how do we need to build an economy to function as that society? And I'm with you. Let's give everybody universal basic income. We are not lazy. Yes, there are some twats out there, excuse my French.
Yeah.
There will be some people that take the mick.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. If there's a 1% of people take the mick, but 99% have what they need and contribute better and can think better and can be part of a community and elevate this country, I'm okay with that. I'll deal with that. But imagine if we can define what society we want and then decide how we want to structure our economy to cater for that society rather than the other way around. That would be,
I love it.
That would be bonkers.
It would, but it's the what if it happened, and what, you know, and that's part of our culture, Collaboration Global, is that if we can center everything we do on love, and we understand how that we need to connect to ourselves more deeply in order to connect better to other people, and we put that philosophy and that culture into our businesses, and we expand our businesses, then if that ripples out, that love, connection and abundance, that mindset of abundance ripples out, then the current powers that be, the rich, you know, the super rich, and the oligarchs and the aristocracy and the governments of the world won't have the same power over people that go, no, you're all right, I don't need that, thanks, I'm good, I've got enough. You know, it's that kind of not having that need because of peer pressure, because of media, because of advertising, that we are taught to spend and consume because you ought to. You've got to have a better quality TV, you've got to have a new iPhone, you've got to have all these things that are just threatening and ruining our planet. What if we didn't have to do that? And what if you go, well, I've got enough, you know, I've got enough because then I can help somebody else with a little bit of money, and actually I don't need much money because, you know, I exchange a lot of my things. You know, I don't need a drill because one person down my road has a drill and they share it with everybody. It's really great.
Genius.
You know, so spreading that word, and then not having governments have, or, you know, all of those people that are pressurizing us to do the old way, the fear, scarcity and competition way, ultimately will give us the power, so that when we see something online or in the media or something we don't like, we just not spend our money in that space. So for example, if we weren't happy with somebody on Twitter, then everybody would go, well, I'm coming off of Twitter until they do something about it. You know, if Twitter isn't paying, or whoever isn't paying their taxes, well, we'll boycott that for, you know, a month, or until they start doing what they should be doing, what their human obligation is, not their legal obligation. What is right in the eyes of the majority of people. Now, I know it's utopia. I know it's, yeah, Jill, it's a bit naive. That's never going to happen. But why not?
But why not think of it? Maybe we'll get 2/3 of the way there, which is way better than where we are now. And I'm looking at, I mean, I live in a Victorian terrace, so everybody parks on the street. And I'm looking at the street, and there's probably 100 cars on the street, of which 20 are in use at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if we just had 20 cars and we all just borrowed them. Yeah, we all just shared. And, you know, and if we needed 21, we hire one. You know, there's a kitty that we just hire one for that person. That how much money and time and effort and resources would we save?
Yeah,
it's bonkers.
And also, all these ideas are so sort of childlike in their simplicity, but people then turn around and go, yes, but what about all the people that make the cars? They'd be out of work. And I'm like, well, they could go and do another job, because there's going to be people that are making cars that don't really want to be making cars at the moment. So if they've got universal income, they can go, yeah, that's okay, I'll go and do what I wanted to do. I'm going to go and play more football or whatever.
What about all the people that used to do typing?
Yes.
They're all out, they've done something else instead.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
That's what
every
happens.
year there's a new industry, and every year, you know, people are having to work out how to do new things. It's this mentality of scarcity, you know, but what will happen if that happens? We'll move on and we'll find solutions. We'll find another way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's not hold on to the past just because it's comfortable. Let's actually get something. Let's think about what we want it to be, and let's go there.
Live into that. Yeah, it is scary, change. I get it. I love change myself. It's like new opportunity, but I think an awful lot of people are in this little fur-lined rut and go, I'm comfy, I'm not going to move and change for anything. And yeah, I get that they don't want to change, but if it's to benefit everybody. Anyway, have you come across, or are you part of B1G1?
I'm not part of it. I've seen it around, and it's one of those things that I keep looking at and never quite getting around to getting involved. But yeah, absolutely love it. It's a great concept.
Well, you're already involved now through Collaboration Global, because we're partners with B1G1.
Good.
So your membership part of that goes to B1G1 every month. But that is an example of the way the world is changing. Because I don't know about you, when you go into London and you see a charity headquarters like Salvation Army, and you're like, flipping it, how much does it cost to run that business?
Right in the city of London on the river.
In the city of London. And then you find out that their CEO is earning 200, 300, 500,000 pounds for being a CEO. And it's like, well, that's what jobs that CEOs of big organizations are worth these days. But you don't need that much money to run. So what I like about B1G1 is that you pay membership, and that membership runs the organization. Then anyone that donates, that goes 100% to the good causes. And it's like, it's such a simple idea, and it just, it makes perfect sense. So I think a lot of these things, changing a culture of your business, allowing your staff to take annual leave when they think it's, you know, appropriate, or even choosing their own salary. We don't have to be this stereotypical hierarchy of what I say goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the real idea for me about that whole kind of concept of unlimited holidays is, if they start taking more holiday than you expect them to normally take, you've got to ask yourself, what are you giving them? What are you motivating them to come into work? And what are you giving them that makes them want to get out of bed and come to work? Because if they spend half their time on holiday, you're obviously not delivering the purpose and passion of what you're trying to build in a way that attracts the right people, which either means you're doing something crappy, or you haven't actually motivated and articulated what it is you're doing. But usually, if you can get to that point where you're like, this is what we're doing, this is how we're impacting people's lives, people are happy to get out of bed and come to work. In fact, they're desperate for it.
Yeah, and they will go above and beyond. And I think there's always going to be, as you say, there's that 1% who take the mickey, the polite version. And you know, no matter what you do, no matter how motivating you are, they're not going to get it, they're not going to see it, they're not going to engage in it. So you have to kind of go thanks but no thanks, and let them go. But I know they are in the minuscule minority that you shouldn't not try something for the majority of the people in your company just for the sake of that kind of 1% of people that are bad. It's like you shouldn't not let your kids play out the front, or you know, have adventures just because of the scary stories.
It might get hurt because somebody might. Yeah, it shouldn't. Absolutely, and I totally agree that. And again, we've got to ask ourselves, what have we as society done that means that 1% is like they are? Because the chances are not their fault. Yes, they're responsible, but we have contributed to the fact that they felt marginalized, and they felt like nobody cares, and they felt so therefore they don't care.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should look at that as well.
Well, that was part of the conversation at Clubhouse the other day, wasn't it? When someone said, you know, if people are going to litter on the beaches, and there are like tons of litter on the beaches, I feel compassion for them.
Yeah.
Because they don't realize what they're doing. It's like, you know, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, straight out of the Bible. And we have to have compassion. And then this other guy said, you have to demonstrate the right way to be.
Yeah.
And then people just jump on your bandwagon of like, oh, okay, this is what we do then. We get a black sack and we pick up some of the rubbish. I might not have dropped it, doesn't matter. I want it to look nice, so I'm going to start clearing up and making it look nice. It's a different way of seeing the world, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a way of seeing the world. And I think this is really kind of beautiful of what Collaboration Global are doing. We are connected. We are all part of the same ecosystem. We are all part of the same community. And actually, one hurts, we all hurt. So come on, let's all smile. Let's all bring joy. Let's, you know, and yes, you know, sometimes we mourn together. It happens. It's just life. Yeah. But mostly, you know, let's not mourn because each other are not, you know, we're all part of the same thing.
Oh, perfect. Love it. Love it, Ben. Thank you. I'm not going to stop. I've got a few more minutes. So I'm going to grab your time for a few more minutes. When Ben isn't busy working and helping people with their culture and creating wonderful websites for them and getting stuff awesome, giving them weird and wonderful things to do that make massive difference. That's a brilliant example, by the way. What do you do for funsies?
I tend to coach. I know it sounds like a busman's holiday, but I coach rugby. So I coach girls rugby, and I coach under I was going to say under 12s, but they're under 13s now. They just moved up. So under 13s boys rugby, and I coach girls rugby.
Brilliant.
So I spend most of my time doing that.
have you got, I mean, presumably it's like with me when my kids were young, you get stuck involved with all the stuff that they're really interested in. Because my philosophy when you have children is you can't put all of your likes and dreams and ambitions on them. You have to go, what is it you like? And then you have to get stuck into what they like as well. So at a young age, I was helping them with their drama school and plays and, you know, learning lines and all that kind of thing, which I'm still a huge fan of today. But when the kids aren't around, what's your dream day? What's your perfect day look like for Ben?
That's really interesting. It's really difficult to think of, because once you've had kids and they've been around for kind of 15 years, you lose yourself in being a parent, don't you? I would love, if I had the perfect day, I think I'd love to get up and go for a run and sit down and spend most of the morning reading, and then just sit in the afternoon just with people that I know and love, and just chewing the fat like this, essentially sitting down, deciding, just coming up with ideas that might change the world, coming up with things that, why don't we try, is this a good idea? And just constant, because that's what goes through my head. Even if I'm just sitting around by myself, these are the kind of things that will go through my head. And to sit in the garden with a drink, with a beer or a glass of wine, with people with a similar mindset, with people like you, and just, how are we going to fix this? What can we do? What can we do to give people the spark? What can we do to make this better? That would be my ideal day.
I love that idea. I can visualize it now. I'll have a G&T, thank you. Because so many people are striving so hard for life to be better, and they forget that the actual day they've just lived is pretty awesome as well. So I always have this picture of my ideal day, and it's not dissimilar to yours. There's usually a client in there somewhere, or there's a collaboration, global connection in there somewhere. And it is something of knowing that you've helped someone that day, and it's like, brilliant, done
Absolutely.
it, job done. And it makes you feel worthwhile. But the skills that you've been blessed with, whatever they happen to be, are, you know, other people go, well, that's really clever, and you go, no, it's obvious, it's not really difficult, because it's your genius. You see it as easy, and other people think, well, I could never do that. And that's when you bestow your gift on other people, one, they're over the moon and they think it's fantastic, and it just gives you such a good glow, doesn't it? And I think there's not enough people that, one, can identify what their own genius is, and two, don't ask enough people, how can I help, so that they can actually share that genius and get it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really funny, that how can you help bit, because I've been finding more and more in one-to-ones recently with people that other people are asking. I'm like, oh, you got in there first. I'm so cross.
That's nice. And you have to have an answer, don't you? Because if you're having that one-to-one and they says, well, how can I help you? What an opportunity. Why would you say, no, I'm good, thanks? It's like, use them. You know, it's a gift for somebody to say, how can I help? What would be your genius? What would be your thing that you like? Yeah, it's easy. I can do that. No problem.
It's interesting you say that, because I wrote a blog post called the you good me bad paradox, which looks at exactly that. When I see your skill and talent, I go, wow, that's amazing. And when I look at my own skill and talent, I'm like, that's easy. Anybody can do it. And it's a weird paradox. But for me, I think I have the ability to really take ideas and distill them down into something that other people can connect with, and articulate them in a way that when somebody else reads what they're like, oh, I want to be part of that. Let's build that. And that, to me, just being able to see those things and say, well, how about this? Let's distill it down into something that when somebody else reads it, they get it and they want to be in, and it touches them kind of in their soul. It's not just informational. It's not just a fundraising pitch. It's heart and soul stuff. That's the bit that, and see that in other people. When you see somebody that's got an idea and they're doing something as a business, and you're like, no, this is where you're changing lives. Yes, you think you're building websites or making widgets or whatever, but what you're actually doing is affecting this life in this way for this good. Let's do more of that. And that is something that, because I remember I was on Facebook recently, and somebody was asking that question, what do you do? Give me a 20-second pitch. And people were putting their pictures in, and I'm like, yeah, that is what you do, but that's not exciting. And I was commenting on them. So somebody was like, you know, we send flowers to people to make their lives a little bit more beautiful and better. And so I wrote underneath, I said, we make everywhere beautiful. That's what we do. That's florists. That's what we're about. We're making life beautiful everywhere. And it's not much change, and that is, I think, where I've really come into my own, that ability to take what people do and distill it into the impact it has in a way that just touches people's hearts, and people grab hold of it with their emotion rather than just their brains.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're going to be cynical, we all know that emotions sell. Was it facts tell, stories sell? And being able to do that. I remember many years ago, I was part of BNI, Business Network International, and we were training members or directors as well, and we got them to pitch their 60 seconds, and that the game was, you'd pitch to me and I'd be like, I don't care. Oh, okay. And pitch again, still don't care. And it's like, make me care. Say Absolutely. Something that's going to make me really care. And then it's like, now I want to buy something from you, because it's like you connected me into what you're doing. So you have to go through those hoops to understand what you're offering is so beautiful and so powerful.
Yeah.
Something that's going to be loved.
I think people really struggle to do that in a way that, deep is talking to deep. I find people really struggle to do that, but I find that so easy. That's my area of genius.
That's your thing. Oh, we're gonna test that out, I think. Mr. D, that's gonna be lovely. So it's another wordsmith in the community then. That's something that you kind of you hear it, you see it, you decipher it, and you deliver back out into something that's like whoosh, magic, and they go, oh wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the biggest part of my job, is that, and that revelation that you've just said what I've been trying to articulate for the last 6 months. How have you done that?
That's easy. That's brilliant. I love that. That is, and to actually know that and acknowledge that and be aware of it. That's your USP if you want to be really blatant about it. But it's magic. It's your magic fairy dust, isn't it, that you can sprinkle on everything. That's fantastic.
I find it difficult to do for myself, but I can do for
always, yeah. It's so slow,
the old cobbler's shoes, isn't it? It's terrible.
Yes, yeah. Oh, well, I have to get you to do that for Collaboration Global, because every time I do an introduction, it's a different one and it comes out differently. And it's like I don't have the definitive strapline sentence that.
We should do it. Let's put a date in the diary, and we'll sit down for an hour and we'll go through the process.
Love that. I would love that. You can come on a podcast again, Ben. Brilliant. And looking at the time, I don't want to wrap it up too soon, but if somebody wanted to contact you, either because their business needs a bit of support, or they're looking at their culture going, oh, I thought it was one person who's a pain, but maybe it's me, I don't know, or they're just curious to have that conversation, what's the easiest way to get hold of you?
You can get onto the website, which is thecultureguy.co.uk. But if you forget that, go onto Google and search for The Culture Guy. I'm up there first.
Woo, well done. Awesome. That's brilliant. Thank you. Ultimately, though, if anybody's listening to this and they'd like to meet Ben in person, he's going to be at the Collaboration Global Sessions on the last Tuesday of every month, and guests are welcome. You can find us on Eventbrite. Just go onto Eventbrite and search for Collaboration Global. Or you can Google us, we're on there as well, or go to the website collaborationglobal.org and you can book in that way as well, and then you get to meet the man himself. Thank you so much for the conversation, Ben. We came to big macro thinking and we've come back to individual genius as well. So what a journey. I really, really appreciated this conversation. Brilliant way to end a Friday afternoon, and have a fabulous weekend. Thank you for joining us today.
You too, Jill. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's always great talking to you.
Fantastic. I'll keep you to that as well. I'll have that time off of you to see what your genius can do for us too. Thank you. Take care.